Hello and welcome to Clamp, the weekly podcast where we discuss all things related to creating, living, and making projects. I'm your host, Grant Alexander, and joining me as always is Morley, Kurt, and Adam Mackey. Today is an exciting day because the Clamp Challenge is over. It's very exciting. This episode, we are going to be talking about every single entry. We got so many amazing entries. We're also going to be talking about the host challenge. And in the end, we're going to be revealing our 3 picks, the people who are getting the prizes, and we're going to talk about the prizes and where they're going. So let's start with the host challenge.
Yes, sir.
Adam, it's up to you to go log in and see how many people Morley converted from his YouTube audience to go over to Instagram.
I honestly don't think very many. Like, I'm pretty sure around like 20 people liked that post. It's so funny. So when I posted that picture on YouTube that I bought the pink filament, that is the most engaged post I've ever made on YouTube. I think it has something like 400 likes, which for a YouTube post for me is like insane.
Yeah.
People were so invested in getting pink filament for Eden. Yeah, this one only has 20 likes. So I bet like 3 people went over from YouTube to vote for me.
I don't know.
I can't see that engagement. But so we had 67 votes, 41 to Morley, 26 to Grant. And being that I didn't get my project done because I've been dealing with a chest infection, I got to choose the prize / punishment for Grant. So here it is. Grant has to make a YouTube video making a trophy for Morley that has a plaque saying that Morley is better than me.
Oh, God.
And you have to give him a shout out in the video as well.
Of course.
Trophy can look however you want it to look, but it has to be a winner's trophy. So it can't just be like a penis. And
it could be a penis.
What if he is the...
If he likes wieners, okay. But yes, the plaque has to say Morley is better than me. Or Morley is better than Grant.
So just to give the audience some context, it was my idea for Adam to come up with the prize or punishment for the winner or loser. And I said that we should talk about it beforehand to avoid any hard feelings. I personally feel like this is a bit on the hurt, like, you know, it's a lot of work for Grant and a lot of big slice of humble pie. So I will say that this also may be a blessing in disguise because, like I mentioned in the pre-show, there are a lot of people who play fantasy football and come up with these sorts of like prizes or punishments for their teammates. So if you make this video in the context of like how to making a fun, you know, prize or punishment for your fantasy football league, not fantasy football, but find a way to describe it to appeal to that audience, then it possibly could do very well.
This is why I came up with what I did.
Right. All I'm hoping out of this video is that somehow someone searches for Morley Kurt and then they get to my channel. Right? Because right now, Morley Kurt is a search term in YouTube. So as long as I put him in all my titles, then I might just grow that way.
This is why I chose what I did. The punishment really is Grant having to engrave or whatever that Morley is better than him. But in return for that, Grant is also getting a video that should hopefully get him some views. Because I think making your own trophy is definitely a good idea for a video.
I do have all those old trophies that I hadn't thrown away yet.
Yeah, and you can make it out of those.
You'll see how much I go, how far I go, how much I use of that. They're a nice starting point for sure. So, congratulations, blah, 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 blah. You made a project.
Congratulations, Morley. I still 100% believe if I made mine, I would have won.
Yeah,
I think that if you made yours, I would have won because you would have split the vote. How about that? I do think that my project is better because it still exists, and Morley's project is in the garbage, literally, and the garbage project won. And I feel like this is like the United States of America elections. It's like the worst. It was the choice between the 2 worst projects.
And on that high note,
either a piece of garbage or someone just literally slapped something together at the last minute. So let's talk about the amazing entry. So we're going to go through the entries. There are 30, I believe, 31,
31.
including one fail. So 30 plus a fail entries. In this, I'm amazed. That's way more than I thought we were going to get. They are amazing. Every one of them deserves everything. I will say we're going to try and go through them in chronological order, but when we wrote the list, we weren't thinking about that, so some of them might be a bit out of order. But let's start it off with the person who got their project done in record time, Emmett from Dead Rise Woodcrafts. His first entry, and his official entry, was a tiny treescape made from a vintage clamp. Now, for the listeners at home, if you want, we're going to have the links to all of these, hopefully maybe somewhere, or you can just search the hashtag clamp challenge. But if you'd prefer to just see what we're talking about while we're talking about it, Adam is going to go through the painful editing process of pulling up pictures of all these projects and putting them on the YouTube while we're doing it. So, have fun with that. But on that note, what do you guys think about the tiny treescape? Oh, the other thing, we're going to talk about the winners at the end. I think I already said this. We're going to go through all of them and then talk about the winners.
All right. Yeah, I think it's super cool. And I've seen Emmett make a lot of these treescapes. One question I have for you guys was, do you know kind of how he got into doing this, or if this is like part of a larger genre? Because I've never really seen anyone else do this sort of stuff.
I remember his first one because I was like super enthralled by it because it's like a little camping scene. And I was like, that's awesome. But I don't know if it's got to be a genre out there of like tiny treescapes. But
yeah, it's super cool. And I mean, I know like turning small trees, like Christmas trees on lathes is pretty popular, but it seems Emmett has made a whole, like, I think about like, David Pacino mentions his dad making like the thousands or millions of tiny little crosses, and Emmett is approaching that level of commitment to making tiny trees.
Yeah. I think it's amazing. I love the little treescapes. They're awesome. Yeah, definitely something I wish I had here. So Emmett, feel free to send it my way.
Yeah. Emmett also made
you should have sent it to me already. Then you might have got that bribe in, but you didn't, so you missed it.
Emmett also submitted a second entry, I think within, like, if my memory serves me right, it was within like a few days of his first one, which I think in private messages, a lot of us, like the three of us, kind of agreed. We were like that, the treescape was cool, but this one we all really, really liked was the pen made from a wooden screw of a vintage hand screw clamp, which we mentioned in past episodes, ended up being like a huge category in the clamp challenge, these wooden hand screw clamps. Like I feel like we have to do a final tally, but it must be like at least half of the projects were made using these hand screw clamps.
Yeah.
I look at that one and I think I don't want to hold it, but I definitely want that on my desk. Like, there's no way I'm using it, but I want it there.
It reminds me of those slide-on sandals, like the Adidas ones that have all the little spikes in the sole. And I always wondered, like, why do people wear those? Because I put them on for short periods of time and like they kind of hurt my feet.
So I had a pair in high school and they were amazing. And then I got a pair when I was like in my 20s to relive my high school, and I could not wear them. I'm not joking. I could not put them on. I couldn't walk 10 feet without them. I'd rather walk on gravel than wear the sandals, which was insane. And I don't know what happened. I think they've changed them, that they're like spikier or something.
Yeah, or maybe you need like calluses on your feet, which you had in high school, but then lost in your 20s.
Maybe. Well, the next one is from Juniper and Sixth Design, the tiny, what are these things called?
Cam clamp, stitching pony.
Stitching pony. He made a travel stitching pony, which I thought was really cool. It is a cam clamp, so he made his own clamp. He didn't make it out of a thing. I really like how the leather strap also doubles as a spot to put, so you can put it in your knees and hold it that way. It's just a really neat little design. What do you guys think?
It looks like super high quality, and he clearly put a ton of thought into it. Like, I think this was another very early post, at least when he was doing his prototype. And I remember when we were first talking about it, some of us I think we were unclear as if the first version was the final, but you can really tell that putting in that work to make the prototype, he ended up with like a very nice end product. The fact that it's like moving wooden parts and actually works. Speaking from experience, who's someone who's tried to do that before, I'm very impressed by.
I totally want to know if he takes it like camping or something, if the humidity would make it so that it stopped working.
Possibly, but I also think that people overestimate wood movement in general, or maybe that's just in YouTube comments.
Yeah, definitely. With that, so I've got a TikTok that's blowing up right now, and half the comments are, "You shouldn't have done that because of wood movement." I was like, "The wood's dry, anyways." It is.
I feel like in my engineering classes, we always learn that like wood movement scales with the size of an object. So like an 8-foot long board, the wood movement will be much more dramatic than a tiny cam clamp. So whenever I've thought about furniture pieces, I've always like assumed that one, if it's plywood, it shouldn't really matter because plywood holds itself in like the alternating plies holds it together in terms of wood movement. But also for small things, like that amount of movement shouldn't matter. That being said, like the clearances in Collins' project might be so small such that even small amounts of movement would matter. But I feel like as long as it's not constrained, it should be okay. Like it can expand in other directions.
All right. Next up, we have Eve from Project and Things.
What a start. Oh boy.
Okay, let's not get me to do any of them.
That was too perfect. All right. I'll take it away.
Jesus Christ. All right.
So next up, we got Eve from Projects and Things. So I feel like Eve was also working on this from like the very outset of the challenge, but he was posting project photos for what seemed like a month in advance to his final reveal. And I think all of us, or none of us for that matter, had any idea what he was making until the final result came out. And I don't know if anyone could have anticipated what this was. I mean, I still don't fully understand it, but it's awesome.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I still don't know what it is. It looks cool.
Did you watch the YouTube video?
I did, and I still don't understand what it is.
Oh my god!
I mean, I really like it, but it's a total fantastical diorama.
She's trying to make the golden eggs.
Ah, yes, that's what it is.
I get it.
You got to know.
So to paint a word picture
it's
for the
really cool.
For the audio listeners, he basically made a diorama of a goose controlling kind of like a mad scientist laboratory that is trying to create a golden egg. And he made a whole YouTube video about the process, which we'll link in the show notes. And it's super cool. He did like a lot of weathering. He did a lot of like painting and bricolage, like putting multiple things together. And it's probably one of the most unique projects that came through this challenge.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's only like there was a few projects that were definitely very, very unique.
Yeah.
I love found art or like a bunch of stuff that you're like, what is that? That looks so familiar, but like it's been painted and it looks different. And this is the type of thing. It's a bunch of like random things all together that you have to try and figure out where are they from. That's the kind of stuff gets me going.
Yeah, it's awesome. So next up, we got Mark Dayner made a DIY pipe clamp vise. This is funny. This is something I've been thinking about recently. And I think leading up to my clamp challenge entry, when I was trying to figure out what I wanted to make, I've been thinking for a while about like wanting a vise. And I think when I was looking through the entries and I realized that he had done this, I was like, well, I can't do it anymore. But it is a very great project. It seems like a great way to have like an affordable wood vise from like a pretty common set of tools.
Definitely. It's definitely the type of thing that you would see like on an old workbench because somebody did it, you know? Like,
Yeah, I had one of my old workbench.
yeah, it's definitely like the type of thing that you would, your grandfather had on their workbench because they couldn't afford a real one.
Yeah. I want to say, Mark, I saw that you tried to bribe us by putting our logo on your Vice. I also do like that Mark now has our logo permanently in his shop.
Yes.
So
Yes, it's very nice. Until he replaces that with a real Vice.
Yeah. And then I expect a bigger logo.
So next, I think we have the most commented on and most hated project entry with 4.1 million views on Instagram. Ethan Carter with a leather wrapped epoxy clamp. So Ethan took a clamp, made a mold of that clamp, poured epoxy in it, made an epoxy version of the clamp, and then he said, well, that's not enough, and then wrapped it in leather because that's what he does. And I think he had 4.1 million views, and 4 million of them were, why the hell did you do this? And but I loved it. I thought it was really cool. Useless, unnecessary thing.
So I saw the post when it came out. I was totally enraptured. I think I watched it multiple times to get a full sense of everything that he did. And then he messaged me like saying how much it had blown up and how like crazy of a ride it was. So, but I'm curious, like, since you seem to have kind of like followed up on the reception, is the main like theme in the comments with all the controversy just like, why did you do this? Or was there any like genuine hate?
The hate was like, it was confusion and like hate on like the 5 minutes crafts kind of hate. Like,
okay.
You've wasted my time because you made something that was kind of cool and then you wrapped it in leather. So you've gone like too far.
I wonder if he initially intended to wrap it in leather or his original idea didn't work, because I don't understand why he's put rocks in the epoxy and then completely covered it. So I reckon his original plan was to have the rocks and epoxy and that be it, and then didn't like how it turned out when it settled.
I think it was bits of leather in the epoxy, because the whole like joke was it's leather in epoxy, then wrapped in epoxy. Sorry, then wrapped in leather.
Yeah. And then he should have epoxied the leather as a finish. That would have been like taking it to the next step.
I mean, I want to hear Ethan's take, but I kind of hope that he had this whole master plan all along, that it would be this like 5-minute crafts-esque style video.
Definitely.
Yeah. So shout out to Ethan. I think put in clamp on the map with that reel. All right. So next up, we have a twofer from Doug Pissick. He put out 2 kind of art holding clamp challenge projects. So the first one I want to talk about are these corner clamps that he made to hold a piece of like wooden wall art. And one thing I really like about this project is that like every single aspect of it is wood. So not only is the wall art itself wood of different species and different colors, the frame of that is wood. And then the corner clamps and every component of the corner clamps are also made of wood, including like the pins that are holding them into the frame. So it just makes for this very, very satisfying visual thing. And I'm really curious, like how he made the screws, like if he turned them on a lathe, because he says that it's hand carved, but he didn't really go into any detail about how he made the screws.
It says hand cut wood clamps. So it's like he probably used like either they make a die that makes the threads.
Oh,
so that you
yeah.
can make your own thing.
That's cool.
Or he did it on like a metal lathe.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I thought initially, but I forgot. I think Matthias Wandel might have made some videos about like using those thread cutting dies.
Yeah.
Like a doweling jig, but it has a cutter for the thread.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The other one he entered, which is simpler but also like very, very beautiful, is using these tiny brass detail bar clamps, which I'm still very unclear about the scale of the whole thing. Like when I look at this, it looks like it's like 3 inches tall, but it could easily be a foot tall. And he uses them to hold up a fossil on a nice like wood and rock stand. But I've never seen these sort of like little bar clamps before. I'm curious if they're used in like jewelry making or watchmaking or something.
Yeah, I don't know. I agree. I've never seen them before. They're really cool looking clamps. I remember scrolling through my Instagram and going and seeing like the first start, like just these two projects popping up like halfway, and I was like, I hope they're an entry into the clamp challenge. Like that's what I remember. It's like that's a really cool way of displaying art that I would never have thought of, and now I can't do because I would just be ripping off Doug. And I think these were actually in a museum at one point. Or at least the other one might have been. I don't know if this one, the fossil one, but I think he said the other one was in a museum at one point, which is really awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. Doug has like a very legit page. Like makes straight up art. Very impressive Instagram feed for sure.
Next, we have Chad's Custom Creations, another podcast host. He made a clamping jig that lets him get in a perfect drill into a circular object every single time. So he's making these little like circular signs, and they need to have two holes in them. And he made this clamping jig to hold the things. I did a poor job of explaining that, but it's so simple it's hard to explain.
Yeah, I mean, I think the challenge is holding a circle vertically, and he figures out a very simple and effective way of doing it while drilling holes through it.
Yeah, essentially it holds a frisbee that then drills two holes in the side of the frisbee.
Yeah.
And seeing how many he made in this reel, like, seems like a super worth it project. I've never done this level of production work before. Maybe the only thing that's approached that was the like 120 leather keychain blanks that I cut out recently. But that was so simple that like I could do it with a rotary cutter and a little cardboard template and put on a podcast for like 30 minutes and just busted it out. But for large scale wooden production work like that, that's
do you
little jigs like that I think save your life. Oh, true. I have them. The next challenge we got up is John the Shriner, his F-clamp to bandsaw tensioner. Sorry. No. Oh, sorry. I went out of order. DW Wood Builds, his modified F-clamp to twisting wrench. These are very similar sounding projects, so you'll forgive me that I mixed them up. I'm also about to sneeze, so if I need to mute for a second, I feel like the sneeze might go away, so it might be just a false alarm. Yeah, seems like another like very simple yet effective project. You can see how if like you cut off the pads of an F-clamp, how it could be a very effective twisting wrench. I feel like that was something I realized while we were at High Caliber Camp, how like these super simple metal shapes can be so effective at just like providing leverage, especially when you're doing blacksmithing and other sort of metalwork. Being able to like heat metal up and weld metal together, if you can like do those two things, I feel you can like make anything, just bending and attaching pieces of steel.
Definitely. Now, I don't know if you had a chance to watch his video that he only put it out a couple days ago, but he did actually test it out. And unfortunately, the clutches have too much play in them. That it doesn't work. Once the metal's all hot, you just can't get it. You can't get it on there and get it in there fast. So if you can't do it fast, it's no better than just screwing something together.
What if you just welded the cast iron parts to the bar?
Well, then it's not adjustable.
Oh, I see.
The whole thing is it's nice that it's an adjustable one. But it was a nice experiment that I think was a really interesting way of thinking about things. And a gear clamp with the one that goes up the bar would totally solve that, but then it stops being cheap.
Yeah.
Right.
It's a really cool idea.
Yeah. I like the fact that someone tried something that, maybe it in the end obviously didn't work, but they definitely tried something because of this challenge. And I think that's awesome.
And that's also like a very hard product design challenge. When something already exists that does a job well, trying to design a new version of it is incredibly difficult because you kind of have a sense that this problem has sort of been thought through. So just props for him to attempting that sort of project at all, because that's intimidating.
Totally. The next one that Morley already talked about, but I'm going to talk about, is John the Shriner. He made an F clamp to bandsaw tensioner, which is basically he modified an F clamp to give him more leverage for he could tighten down his bandsaw. If you've ever used one of the cheap Delta knockoffs, they come with like a really tiny like knob that's hard to turn. So this is what he did to try and make it easier to turn. He didn't even know the podcast challenge was going on when he modified his clamp, but then he updated his post to include it.
So this reminds me of a story from the Off-Grid Lodge, which I'll briefly divert into. So the toilets across this lodge ran on a vacuum system because there was all these changes of elevation among all the cabins, and the wastewater treatment plant was actually above many of the cabins. So a long time ago, when this was all put into place, someone decided that vacuum toilets would be the best way to do it. And there's all these shutoff valves along the line so that you can isolate different parts of the system, which is really important if there's a clog anywhere and then you lose suction to make sure that not all of the toilets stop working. And because this is a vacuum, it's basically like PVC. I think it might be ABS pipes that hold it all together, and it's under a vacuum. There's a lot of friction if you try to turn any of these knobs or any of these like ball valve, shutoff valves. So we would do the most ridiculous setups with those big pipe wrenches to get leverage, because these PVC lines were like buried in these outdoor sort of like wooden boxes that were lined in insulation. So they were really difficult to get into. So we basically have one pipe wrench in there and then another pipe wrench attached to the first to try to twist it in the correct direction. And every single time we would do it, I was like, is this going to be the time where we just straight up snap this ball valve? Because there's no way that it's going to stand up to this amount of torque from metal wrenches forever. It was just like, an accident waiting to happen.
But it never happened?
Not while I was there. I think it will one day. But they would get so chewed up from that like you couldn't even twist it with your hand because it was so painful. All right. Oh, it's my turn again. All right. Going quick. So we got RLL, Woodworks and DIY. Rory did another kind of like 5-minute crafts style project. So he took one of the Irwin quick clamps and used that as a core in a Thor Mjolnir hammer, and made an incredibly entertaining reel about making it. So he used some sort of like, Grant is going to know what the actual name for this putty is that he used to mold it. He used some sort of like caulk for it and then painted it, did a bunch of weathering, and then made this like leather wrapped handle that he attached onto it. And I love how the end product is such that you would never know that a clamp is inside, but that's how it all started. It's like, it's hilarious, but it also seems like having a clamp in there made a lot of sense because it provided like the perfect structure to make this hammer.
I also think it's hilarious. Like, it's like the people who fix like a bunch of concrete with Mr. Noodles or ramen.
Yeah.
It's like, in the end, you couldn't tell the ramen's in there, but it's in there.
Yeah.
The only thing it was missing was putting in a lit firework before you.
Yeah.
Have you seen that? I don't understand those reels. They make no sense to me.
Did they like explode at the end?
No, they just like they light like a bunger, stick it in, and then they weld up or whatever they've put it into, and it never explodes. You never see it explode or anything. It doesn't make sense. I don't get the point of it.
I feel like there's a lot of weird like subliminal messaging, subconscious psychology going on. Like you don't know why you enjoy it, but you just do. And shout out to Rory because he tapped into that, and that's amazing.
Yeah. Really cool.
Yeah.
Carbog for what you were saying. That's what we call it.
Carbog?
Sure, you have a different name for it. Carbog. And we also have Builder's Bog.
I think it's called Bondo.
Bondo, yeah.
Yeah,
but we
I
call
think
it
it was
Bog.
Bondo.
Yeah. I could see the thing. It's actually all-purpose putty is what it was called. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like, why even bother putting the clamp in there? I don't know. But he did. And it's cool. Next up, we got Yeah, next up we got Mara from Silver Hair and Sawdust. She was another one that used one of these wooden hand screw clamps, and she made a book press. It is white ash, and the hand screw clamps, they look like they might be walnut. I don't know, it's hard to tell. They look really aged and wonderfully patinaed, and it's a really cool looking book press. It's definitely something I think I would like if I'm going to do more leather embossing. I think having something like this would be great for that.
Yeah, if I was doing more bookbinding, book presses would make that process so much easier. Because like getting those two pieces of melamine clamped together and keeping basically 4 separate things aligned as you're doing that is not easy.
Yeah, that's cool.
Looks very nice. The next project we got. Adam, you got to raise your hand.
You got to raise your hand.
I'm sorry. I'm not talking. If anyone's wondering, I'm not talking much because I'm dealing with this chest infection, and I tried to announce one of the people before, and just started coughing. Had a coughing fit, but
Adam's coughing. That's why you can't hear anything.
Stop it. Move on.
All right. He's really pulling it all in today. Like he's clearly suffering a lot. So thank you, Adam, for making the time. Literally taking like puffs of inhaler every 5 minutes. We got Devin Williamson from 292 by Devin made a full-on chair arms and back out of the more modern version of those wooden hand screw clamps. So still like the big oak jaws, but the metal parts, and it's super fun. You know what this kind of reminds me of is like, this would be a perfect shop teacher chair. I could definitely see that in like your shop teacher's class, and like this is the legendary chair that they sit in.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely something to be proud of. Like I love that last photo of him sitting in it because he just looks so satisfied and happy with himself. Rightly so.
Yeah, it definitely turned out good. Awesome. I think he is going to be taking Steve and yours advice of cutting off the back a little bit where the threads are out.
Nice. Yeah, super cool, Devin. Nice job.
Next up, we got the Chad Custom Creations co-host, Keith from Blackthorn Concepts. He made a bookshelf made from another hand screw clamp. He apparently got this clamp a long time ago, and he only had one of the screws. So it was never going to work as a clamp again. So he made it. His idea was making one of these fun little bookshelves, and our challenge is what actually made him finish it up.
Nice. Gotta love being the motivator.
Yeah. And for those who've watched, it is actually apparently a walnut handle or a walnut screw, but then he started sanding it, and it was a slightly different colored, so he just coated the whole thing in Indian ink. So for all those walnut people out there that love their walnut, it's coated in India ink now.
Nice. I mean, I'm sure walnut and India ink will have like a very specific look that will probably look way better than pine covered in India ink. Next up, we have a very interesting one. So Andrew from Hatch made a clamp sword. And I will say, when I first saw this entry, I did not have very high expectations. I think just from the title, I was like, oh, he's going to make like a toy sword out of a clamp. But he didn't make a toy sword out of a clamp. He made like a real sword out of a clamp. And it's so badass. So what he did was he took like a long bar F clamp, welded the jaw in place. So you basically have a handle with a guard at the bottom. And then he sharpened the tip, and it like looks like a very effective saber, like a stabbing sword. Super simple, but also like very cool. So just ended up being an awesome project, all things considered.
It's like the woodworker's version of an umbrella sword. So cool.
Yeah.
It was so he used the longer version of what I was going to use to make the clamp knife. So he used the same Mastercraft garbage clamps that don't have any clutches, that just are constantly falling and you can't actually clamp it to anything. And they're the like, anyways, it's the exact same one. I messaged him. I was like, I sent him a screenshot of like my like plans on making a clamp knife, and he made the clamp sword. So I'm glad I didn't make my clamp knife, because he would have blown it out of the water with a clamp sword.
Why didn't you make a clamp knife?
So basically, in the end, I decided that might take more time than screwing a couple of spring clamps to a board, and I didn't have a lot of time.
There you go. That'll do it.
Because I didn't actually think that either one of you guys was going to finish their project, so I was going to win the host challenge by default. The next one, I'm going to talk about both these ones together because they are very similar. Now, the first one's Cheltenham, and I know Steve told us how to say it, the G-clamp English wheel, and then also Chris Powell with his C-clamp English wheel. And right away, I'm going to say C-clamp wins, so we get that over. But they're very similar. But they're an amazing amount. I don't know if you watched the full YouTube video from Chris, but the amount of like problem solving and engineering that went into his to get everything to work right and slide up and down, it looked really, really cool. It obviously works. Apparently, a lot of the comments I saw were like people often use these for rolling fenders on cars. So that's pretty cool.
Nice.
Yeah, that's really cool idea.
Yeah, I've seen some video. Like I was talking about in the episode with Steve, I've seen some videos of people using English wheels, and it looks like magic.
Yeah. If you saw one of his reels, he hammered some metal, and so then it had all the hammer marks in it, and then he just like 2 seconds on the English wheel, and it's perfectly smooth. And I was like, "What? That's crazy!"
Wow.
Yeah.
Take all the character out of a hipster faux distressed thing.
Oh, that's even better. That's what you should just use it. That should have been the reel. Damn.
All right. Was that for both of those?
Yes, sir.
All right. So I will go on to the next entry. Dan Hench from Dan's Wood Shop. Another wooden hand screw clamp entry. He made a coat rack out of half of a wooden hand screw clamp. And he had this like optical illusion going on with his post where I was fully convinced that the first picture is like a SketchUp rendering. And I was looking at it for the longest time in the feed being like, why go into all of the effort to model this thing in SketchUp? But I now just realized that the way the lighting is, it's a real photo. It looks like he actually cut the screw and then welded it back together to like form the angle so that your hat will actually like fall into the hook, which is a really like simple, nice solution. And I feel like kind of like Devin's clamp chair, it makes me think of like the perfect shop teacher, like office accessory.
I feel like we could definitely renovate a shop teacher's office with a lot of these entries, like the screw clamp pen on the desk and everything.
Yeah.
Up next is an Ottawa entry. Bob from Bob the Woodwork. He made a pedal board, and we talked about this just I think on the last episode. But it is someone who knows what a pedal board is should talk about this.
All right, I can start, and then I know Adam has experience in this field, so he can then maybe weigh in. But basically, if you're playing a guitar, you can link that guitar through a bunch of effects pedals that might add reverb. You can have like a wah-wah pedal or a loop pedal. And if you chain multiple of these pedals together, then you can use different effects together, because traditionally each pedal only does one thing if you're talking like old style analog pedals. So a pedal board basically just holds them all together on one board. And if you want to do it in certain orders, you can move it around. So it's sort of modular.
Do you are these things you actually stand on? Like you don't
stand on them. You kind of just switch it on with your foot.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, they got like knobs on them, so I'm so confused about how you actually use them with your foot.
So the way like a guitar pedal would work is you would have all the knobs set up how you want before the show. So all the little knobs you would adjust by hand to where you have it, and then you see like the bottom of it, there's like a plate, like a big rectangle part. That's what you stand on to turn it on and off. Or some of them have like a little button. The one that's furthest to the right is called a wham pedal. So that's what like makes it go wah, wah, wah. Like when you go like back and forth. And then, so essentially the reason why you want them clamped in place is because once you have your board set up to how you want, you pretty much would just transport it like that.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
But it's really, really cool. I really like he talks about like how a lot of people just have Velcro, and like this is obviously not Velcro. It's 3D printed and looks really nice.
You want to be able to remove them if you need to. Yeah. It's a really cool board.
Yeah. And I will say too that like those pedals are not cheap. Like it looks like there's about $5,000 worth of electronics attached to that board.
Yeah, that's someone that plays gigs often.
The next entry we got is from Harry King Crafts, made a hold fast. A nice, simple project, looks super useful for a workbench. And based on a lot of the comments I've been getting in the pallet table video, is probably something that I should have.
Yeah, a hold fast is definitely something I need. There's a blacksmith in town that makes them, and it's something that when I make my new workbench, I am likely going to put some dog holes in there so I can make some hold fasts. But what I really like about this one is the way that it connects to the workbench. If it's like you can adjust it along like a rail, which is so much nicer than most of them you just put into the dog hole. And this one has like an adjustable dog hole location on a rail, which is really cool.
Yeah, that is very cool. Nice job, Harry, or Harry King. Harry King Live.
Well, we got another stitching pony, and this one is now a full-size one from Griffin Makes. It is made, I think he started off with a hand screw clamp and then turned it into this, but he might have just made it out of wood. I only see the end product. I don't see the starting product, but it's got a really cool like cam closing mechanism that I really like.
Yeah, I like. It's not your like traditional cam operation. It's a little like bulkier and simpler. I feel like Griffin and I think very similarly. I feel like we're kindred spirits, and I want to say that. And Griffin, correct me if I'm wrong, but I want to assume that like when he was making this, he was like, how would a cam clamp work? And he kind of just figured out a solution that worked really well without necessarily like researching it. I could be totally wrong. This could be a traditional style of cam clamp, but I like how it's like a unique solution that seems to just work very well. Griffin is a guy who like has a very small workshop. I think it's basically his dining room that he works out of. So I remember watching his stories as he was working on that, and him just making do with what he had in a very small space with limited tools, doing woodworking. He brought it all together.
Yeah, he hand cut all of this stuff. So one of his stories was like him using a like coping saw and to cut out some of this cherry. And if you've ever cut a hardwood with a coping saw, it is not fun.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I think I have done that. When I was like first starting woodworking in university, that was one of like my main tools was a coping saw. And I made this stand for an ice cream ball, which is basically like a ball that you fill the inner compartment with ice cream ingredients and the outside of it with ice and salt. And then like you roll it and you throw it around and then you get ice cream out of it. And I was like, well, it's annoying to have to hold it to get the ice cream out. So we should have a stand for this. So I made this stand out of plywood and cut it all out with a coping saw. And
oh my God.
Then I had to sand it all and it took forever.
Yeah. Oh man. Sanding the edge of plywood is so frustrating.
Yeah, especially, it's not that frustrating if you do it with power tools, but doing it by hand is not fun. Okay, next entry, Ryan Price. I feel like, not to toot my own horn or anything, but I feel like I might have inspired this project because he did the similar thing as what I did in the 3D printed phone 3D printed ball clamp for the phone mount and using the hole in the end of a spring clamp to mount something on top. So he used one of these magic arms, which I've seen like Ethan Carter and Bernie Solo show on Instagram a little bit, which looks super useful, but I've never actually used one at this point. I think the interesting thing about these magic arms is that there's one knob on them that simultaneously tightens the connections on 3 different joints.
Yes.
So it seems very easy and simple to reposition. In fact, I should probably just get one of these because I feel like I could put it to very good use.
That's really cool.
And yeah, his is, I think, multi-purpose, uses it to hold like a light as well as his phone while working on the lathe. So it looks like a very like useful, just a very useful, simple project.
Definitely. I thought I inspired this project because it was using a spring clamp and basically, you know, but I see yours seems a lot more inspiring than mine. I'd say he did use a riv nut in the end instead of bolting it through the other way. So then like a 1/4-20 riv nut. So then you can change, basically you can use that clamp for any like 90% of like camera things or a 1/4-20. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. That makes sense.
So when the magic arm stops being magic, you can just swap it out.
There you go.
Well, the next is one of the prize givers. Dean Duplantis made a what's best described as a beer flavored hose clamp thing. He makes basically he uses a Zoom digital recorder. And he had it on a tripod. And he basically said the tripod's always in the way. So he figured out a way to use his hose clamp and, of course, some beer cans just for me, and mounted it to his monitor arm. So that gets it off the work surface, so it's not getting knocked over all the time. I think it's another one of those like simple, get her done kind of projects.
Yeah. For sure. I feel like Dean is very good at like, I feel like Dean to me is what the maker movement sort of like originally felt like, if that makes sense. Like if you look back like 10, 12 years, like people making like solutions with a big variety of materials of like very everyday things and making their lives better. I feel like that's a lot of what Dean does. Like he doesn't do any sort of like one craft. He brings together like a lot of different tools and materials to make like specific things that work really well for him.
Totally.
So nice job, Dean. The next entrant is by another Clamp Challenge prize giver, Jeff Stein at A Weird Guy. I know we said it, Ethan's reel already blew up, but I feel like the series of reels that Jeff is making about this Clamposaurus have a lot of potential to also blow up. I think if he plays his cards right, he could come out with some like viral reels of this. So basically it's a series of C-clamps welded together to make a functioning chomping dinosaur, essentially made out of metal. And I literally just realized that it's very reminiscent of the chomp that he made. I don't actually know the correct term for that, but from the Mario games, the big like ball and a chain chomping character. Chomp. And yeah, the chomp.
It's literally called chomp. Yeah.
There you go. I shouldn't have even tried to say that I didn't know what it was called. But what I really like about this one is that it actually chomps. So he's made a couple reels about it crushing things, and just turned out really well. I will say, I feel like he put in an unnecessary amount of work in buying painted clamps and then removing all the clay and paint. Maybe unpainted clamps are really hard to find. But that just seemed like a crazy amount of work.
Yeah. Have you guys seen the one where it crushes the plexiglass?
No, I actually didn't realize he made so many already.
Yeah, he's already made 4. And that one's got the most views. It's 18,000 views. But the plexiglass is just like, oh my God, it's crazy.
Yeah, because plexiglass shatters, right?
Oh, yeah. I've never seen it shatter before, but it shatters nice.
Oh, wow. Dang. Nice job, Jeff. That's super cool. I hope those reels continue to blow up.
So we got Jeremy Speece. He made a clamp light uh, chandelier looking thing for holding a diffuser around his light fixture. So basically, it's got 4 F clamps, and you can, I think maybe it's 4, maybe it's 8, I can't remember. But it basically, you can clamp in different styles of diffusers to get different lighting effects. For those who don't know, I think Jeremy is in. I know he's in the film industry. I don't know exactly what he does, but he clearly knows that you got to have the right lighting for the right mood to get the right stuff. And it was a really cool looking project.
Yeah. Yeah, basically like a whole chandelier made out of clamps. Very
Yeah.
cool. All right. The next entry, another kind of like very, very original one. Some might even call it an invention, coming from Barefoot Finn. She
Yes.
was having a problem vacuuming crumbs out of the cracks of her car seats. So she basically took, I don't know what these types of clamps are called. I know she says it in the description.
It's like a spring clamp.
Yeah, like a spring clamp.
It's got a ratchet on it, right?
Yeah, one of those like ratcheted spring clamps that,
Yeah, I've got heaps
to be
of them.
quite honest, I have no idea what people like. I guess you would use it the same way you would use a spring clamp. Regardless, I'm getting off on a tangent. She basically attached 2 wheels to the end of those to use that to spread apart the cracks of the seat as she runs her vacuum along the crack, which is, it seems to be very effective. And it's just like such a cool, again, very simple yet effective solution to an everyday problem.
Definitely. I think it's definitely one of the ones where I go like, I might have to make that. Like, I don't know. I'm like, I think I might have to make that. Like, it just seems like such an easy, like, I think that's like a Dragon's Den. What do you guys call it in the States? Shark Tank-esque product.
I think if you were to actually sell it, you need a way to attach it to the vacuum itself. So you don't have to
There you
hold it
go.
in a separate hand.
You can have that for free. Koya.
Yeah, take it.
We're going to talk about one project here that didn't make it. So there's not much to say about it because Brad's going to make. He posted a picture. He was posting pictures along the way, but he posted a picture of a fail. So we wanted to mention him. He hasn't explained what he was trying to do. There's a lot of different pieces going on here, and there's a broken C-clamp, so something bad happened. But he's hoping to enter in the next year.
Yeah.
If we ever do it again.
Yeah. He
Yeah,
won't tell us what it is, but he wants to answer it later.
So I'm going to be totally honest here. I had 0 thoughts about doing this again until I saw that post from Brad.
Same.
But it's really cool. Like to know that like some people would actually want us to do this again is really like nice to hear. And I'm sure there's other people who had an idea for a project, got started, and didn't end up finishing. Because I remember seeing Brad's post early on where like the little corn Lego minifig that had its head in a clamp, and I was like, what the heck is he going to do with that? So who knows? Maybe we will do this again. So next entry, Ed Johns made a can crusher out of a clamp.
Yes.
Which is very cool. Honestly, any can crusher I've used before is very cool. But I think to make one out of a clamp and have it operate in that way, where you could even like attach a drill to it to expedite the crushing, is very well done. And I think it would also be cool to find a way to like put it on a piston so that it could consistently like draw back and then put one back on. And I know those like exist in some way or another, but that could be a cool way to try to like iterate on this design. I feel like it has some potential for revisions. Revision sounds bad. It makes it sound like it's not a great project. Potential for a V2.
I think what makes this a really cool project is 2 things. One, the reel is hilarious. If we were picking the winners based on who got me to laugh the most, he'd be right up there. But what I really like is that it's set over top of the bucket and it automatically dispenses them when you let go, which is so much better than all the rest of the like crushers I've ever seen. you have to like do something with the can after you've crushed it. And now sometimes when you crush them, they're like all filled with like that little bit of beer that you didn't drink. Now it's like leaking out of it, and you don't want that.
Yeah, it's cool because like he essentially remade something that already exists, but found a way to make it better in the fact that the can disappears now. Whereas as he showed in the reel, you use a normal can crusher, then you've got to physically take out the can yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So as I was watching Ed's reel, I saw that there's a sticker on the rig that he made that said buttjoints.com. So of course I go to type it into my browser and it just redirects to his Instagram. So I find it hilarious that he bought buttjoints.com.
That's
awesome. I wanted to go to that, but then I was like, I don't want to. I'll have to like put it in incognito mode. Another person who had donated a prize, Justin Ulfler from Bear Make It, he made something with my name on it. So he was really trying to win this one. It is another art piece that's held in place with a clamp. Now, on top of that, he made it with the Clamping at 100 poster that we put out. So he is the only person who bought one. So thank you very much, Justin, for buying the limited edition single. Only people who have it in the world are me, you, and Adam. But yeah, he put a quick clamp holding a picture frame that's framed this artwork that I made. And then he put our names, Grant, Adam, and Morley. And of course, he put them in the correct order, Morley last.
Yep.
All right. And the final post, as far as we know, we tried to do our due diligence. We looked at the hashtag many times. We made stories. We asked friends to please let us know if everyone wasn't included. So if you made a post and we didn't include it, all I will say is that you had many chances to tell us. But the final post that we know of is Warren Matin. He used a bearing puller as a clamp, which looks just like the perfect solution for that specific scenario. So to be able, like today I was trying to get these nails out of hardwood pallet pieces. And it was a sort of situation where I needed like the exact perfect setup for my pry bar and to get everything's at the right angle. So I know that when you're able to get those setups to let you get things at the right angle, that's super satisfying.
Mm-hmm. All right. So now we're going to talk about the winners. Now, this was probably the hardest thing I think I have ever had to judge in my life. There were so many amazing entries, and basically the way we did it is that all three of us picked a top three, and then basically if there was any overlap, we'd go to our number two choice. So each one of us picked a winner. I guess we can go. I'll go first since I'm the one talking. So for me, what I was looking for, and I think I talked about it a lot, was something that was like fun and ridiculous with a clamp. So I picked Eve from Projects and Things, his goose golden egg experiment. These found like putting a bunch of stuff together things are like one of my favorite projects. Tom from Refuse Reuse is another guy who does that really well. He does a lot of welding of them together. But so Eve's project is just one of those things that I really wish I was good at, and I'm not. I can never seem to get, like I never in my mind can figure out how to do that. So that's why I picked this project, because he did something I'm not good at. And it turned out amazing, and I loved it. So
yeah,
we've
well deserved.
So we've split up the prizes into a bunch of different things to try and get them to be about the same monetary value. For Eve, he's getting the IsoTunes extra. What are they called? Extra 2.0 in matte black, a featherboard from donated by Timbacon, a mallet from Dayner Made, a Androzito thing, an Ethan Carter Exacto, a frog pod, and a custom stamp made by Dean Duplantis.
That's quite a haul. Yeah. Eve's got some sweet stuff coming your way.
I guess I'll go next. So I was personally looking for something artistic and out of the box, and I had a feeling that this person would definitely take the cake for me. I honestly, this is the one build other than Eve's that I followed the whole time because I was just obsessed. So my winner is going to be Jeff Stein with Clamposaurus. I'm just amazed at how cool it came out. And like the crushing force on it's really cool. But, yeah. I mean, I've been obsessed like since he made Chomp. So, yeah. So, Jeff, you're going to get a pair of boots from Keen Utility, a set of ISO tunes, what was it, Extra 2.0 in the flat black, a cutting board pack from Matte Black. Cutting board pack is from, was it?
KJP Select.
KJP Select, that's right, yeah. And a mallet from Dayner made.
Yes, sir. I will say, Adam did say early on that he was going to find it hard not to choose Jeff for the winner. And as we were getting toward the end to pick all of the winners, I was sort of thinking like, well, if Adam doesn't pick Jeff, I feel like we need to kind of rejig our winners because Jeff definitely deserves to be one of the winners.
100%.
But I just kind of was assuming that Adam was going to be the one to pick it. So nice job to Jeff. That was an awesome project. And I will be revealing my pick for the winner, the third and final winner. So I will say this project immediately stood out to me when I saw it on the feed. It just kind of entertained me and made me happy and appreciative in a very big way. And I think when I saw it, I was pretty confident that I was going to choose it for the winner just because I thought it was such a fun project. And that was Rory from RLL Woodworks and DIY, the Thor Mjolnir hammer. Wow, I thought I was going to get through that whole thing without making a mistake. But we always surprise ourselves, don't we? So it was just such a fun project. Again, I love like how he tapped into that kind of like 5-minute craft style video, which I know those videos get a lot of flack. And people get annoyed that they're maybe silly. But I think that silliness is really fun. And silliness, I think, has a great place on social media and on Instagram. And I think Rory just did it in a really great way. Just made a super fun project. And I'm sure anytime someone sees it, he's going to have a really good time telling the story of that project and how there's a clamp inside that you will never be able to see. So Rory will be getting the Clean Cut Woodworking router sled. So Rory, if you've been having some big table builds in mind, now is maybe the time to start collecting wood. And I can tell you from experience that there's millions of YouTube views to be had if you want to go that route. I think Keith Drennan was talking about how great of a tool that is. I was hearing some other people talk about them as well. So that should be hopefully useful for him. He's also getting a pen from, I believe, Justin Ulfler from Bare Naked, as well as a Jeff Stein, a weird guy, round to it. So those will be coming your way, Rory. Congratulations.
Yes. Congratulations to all the winners and to all the entries. Like I said, It was difficult. It was not easy. It was really difficult to come up with, there were so many different ways that people entered with such different and interesting designs. I really wish we had enough prizes to give everyone something.
Same.
And I think one thing that I found very interesting was that we decided on this ranked judging system, which I think was very fair. And I was fully expecting that we would have to go to our second or third choices for some of them. But for all of us, it ended up being our first choice. None of our picks overlapped. So both me, Adam, and Grant all had unique first, second, and third choices, which I think is really cool. And it kind of speaks to the variety of entries we got and how each of us thought about this challenge in our own unique way.
Yeah, it was... Wow. So the people who won, once you've heard this, you're not getting the prize if you don't listen. Once you've heard this, reach out to us and give us your address. Because if you don't listen, we're not giving you the prize.
That's fair.
So we've been running
message
along.
us on Instagram.
Yeah, message us on Instagram. We've been running long, so we're going to skip Clamp Mendations this week. And
Sounds good.
instead, we're just going to go straight into the Patreon. Thank you so much, everyone from Patreon, including our F-Clamp level people, Brent Jarvis from Clean Cut Woodworking, Vincent Ferrari from Because We Make, Austin from the High Caliber Craftsman, Scott Worm from Dad It Yourself DIY, and Joe Herdina. Thank you, everyone. For anyone who wants to join our Patreon, you can go to patreon.com/clamp and you can find the pre-show and after show that we do. Recently, they've been getting really interesting because Morley has so much secret stuff to share all the time because he's the one who's like blowing up right now. So he's got all the fun stuff happening. So head on over to that, and you can sometimes hear fun secret stuff that Morley's working on. If you can't, donate to us through Patreon, we completely understand. We'd appreciate if you could share the show or write a review. And I want to say on that note that normally at this point we'd have Morley reading a review, but because we don't have one, we're going to do Adam's Australian Word of the Week.
Okay, Greg can't read because I said skip Word of the Week as well.
Oh, I don't read the chat while I'm talking.
Look, I'm sorry, everyone. I'm trying to get through this episode the best I can. I'm literally sitting here shaking.
Oh my god!
I've been so busy that I've been so sick that I haven't got words prepared and stuff. So we'll skip it for this week.
We're skipping it for this week. The word of the week is pneumonia, and it's not what Adam has. Thank you, TF Turning, for the theme song. Everyone, you can now find us at youtube.com/clampcast. We have hit 100 subscribers. You can now find us there. You don't have to search Clamp Adam Grant Morley. You can just type in youtube.com/clampcast. You can also find us on the Clampstagram, and over on Facebook, you can join Damo as the only person in our Facebook group. So thank you, everyone. Thank you for everyone who joined in, and let's head on over to the after show.
Bye.
Bye.